Last time on the Just Create SMP, I built this incredible gold, copper and zinc farm. And so far it's amassed quite a lot of gold blocks, but not quite so many copper and zinc ones. And that's because I haven't really been online much since this whole thing got started. But over time that'll tick up and I'll have plenty of gold, copper and zinc to get on with. And that's exactly what I need, because it's finally time for me to actually start working on something that I've been saying I'm going to be working on for ages. And that, of course, is my big old underground workshop, which is going under this building here, below my brand new elevator, on the first floor down, directly above my storage system. So we've got a whole bunch of work connecting all these things together and building a massive workshop. But what do I need in a workshop? Well, let's go and find out in my existing workshop, which is not very big at all. Obviously, this existing workshop is just the recycled workshop that we've had since the very beginning. And in here, we've got all of the tools and equipment we need to basically process everything we need, albeit very slowly. Because if I want to crush anything, we've only got one set of crushing wheels. If I want to smelt or haunt or blast anything or wash anything, we've only got one set of fans for each of those. And likewise, we've only got one crafting setup, he says, with the other one just okay. We got two crafting setups. We've only got one press and one mixer and one stone cutter and all those sorts of things. So we've got a whole bunch of things we need to build, but in multiple. So back underground where we're going to be building this thing, I'm thinking that each one of these chunk areas that we've designated can have its own little processing thing in. So we could have a whole bunch of presses in this one, and a whole bunch of saws in this one, and a whole bunch of crafting machines in this one. And then we should have everything we need in absolutely massive quantities, which will be lovely. The problem is, however, of course, I don't have the materials to build all of those things with, so I'm going to have to go back to my old workshop and do a whole lot of crafting. One of the things I'm going to need to craft a lot of is mechanical belt, because we're going to need a whole bunch of that for processing things, and I've hardly ever got any of it. And the reason for that is it requires kelp, and kelp is something that I'm not automating. In fact, I don't know if anyone's automated it on the server at this point, but of course it grows in quantity in the ocean around here. So I think before I do anything else, I'm going to build a boat. Oh no, not again. Yeah, I'm going to build a boat, mate. For a fancy kelp boat, I'm going to need a lot of mechanical harvesters, which for some reason I've got 100 of, so that's good. Of course, this boat's actually going to be a train, so I'm going to need a bunch of track. Some barrels for storage would be good, and I'm also going to need some train controls, a seat, and some train casing to actually make the train out of. Next, what I need to do is decide on the best area to start harvesting this kelp, and basically what we want is a whole bunch of kelp in a straight line. That's going to make life nice and easy for me, and there's an absolute ton of it going across here, and there's a ton of it going across there as well. But I don't really want this new track to interfere with my old track, so I think we're going to move away from this area and go to that one over there. So the first thing I'm going to do down here is to place down some track, just like that, and then I'm just going to run that along here, and I'm going to break anything that's in my way, including this little gravel mountain. And bringing the track all the way down to here, that now means we've got an incredibly long length of track stretching further than I can see underwater. Then all I need to do is pop down a little station, stick that into create new train mode. Let's just get rid of a little bit of the kelp round here so it doesn't interfere with what we're building. Then we can pop a bogey down, grab ourselves some casing and make a little bit of a tower. All the way to the surface, pop down a seat, a little bit more casing, some train controls, a little bit more casing along here like this, and we'll throw a few barrels on here. Then all we need to do is a little bit lower down, add a whole bunch of casing sticking out both sides of this thing, and on the front of those we're just going to stick a whole bunch of harvesters. And now that we've got that coming out of both sides, we just need to glue all of these together. And now I have a temporary little boat that I can just drive backwards and forwards to harvest all of this kelp along here, which is absolutely fantastic. All of that should start going in the barrels. Oh, geez, I'm leaving loads of it behind. Oh, I thought it would pick it all up. Maybe saws would have been better. I'm just making a whole mess in the... Oh, geez. Oh, geez, that's a lot of kelp I've just got floating in the ocean. I didn't really think that through. Okay, so having all of the kelp floating has got me thinking, is it possible for me to basically build a little thing like this on top of here, and then just stick a bunch of funnels on here, assuming we get them facing inwards rather than outwards, of course, and then glue these to the boat, and reassemble the boat to train? Yeah. And then see, will they actually pick anything up as we go along? I'm going to say no. No, that's not doing... It did. I think it might have done. It's hard to tell. Now it feels like it's just leaving them behind. It is. It's dropping... So it can drop them out of them, but it doesn't appear to pick any up again. Oh, no, I got one of them facing the wrong way around. That would explain it. Oops. Okay, I've added a whole bunch of funnels to this thing, all facing inwards this time. Let's see if it can actually pick up any of the kelp that's down there. It appears to be pushing some of it and doing absolutely nothing with the rest of it. Perhaps I'm going too fast, but I was kind of hoping some of it at least might be going in. But it appears that the funnels are quite happy to push things out, but not very happy to pull things in. Which is a bit weird, really. Maybe they're too high up. Maybe they need to be a block lower down. And a little while later, we've now got all of the funnels down a block into the water level. So let's see if this will actually pick anything up as we go along. I'm also going to guess... Oh, no, it is. That works. Oh, well, that's good then. And we can push drowns along with us as well. It's fantastic. But now all of the kelp has gone because I've been too busy faffing around. Well, there we go. Now we picked up loads then. We have a system. Amazing. Right, okay, so we got a bunch of kelp from that, which we can start off with. That's going to be a whole bunch of belts. And then once it's all grown a little bit more, I can come back and harvest some more. And if I really want to optimize this, I could go and plant a whole bunch more kelp as well. But right now, this will do. It's not very automatic. No, it's not automatic at the minute. This is a temporary solution, a very, very ugly temporary solution until I can do something more automated. Okay? Jeez, it's just for now because I need to build this workshop. Rubbish. I know it's... Leave me alone. Okay, next job then is to take all of this kelp and put it inside of our smoking machine, which is this one here. Let's just throw that in there, let all of that get turned into cooked kelp, and then we can make a whole bunch of belts. And now that my kelp is all cooked and I've done a bit of crafting, we've now got a whole bunch of materials ready to start building this workshop. It's probably not going to be enough materials, but it should get us started. So down here at the workshop level, we need to think about how we're going to lay this out. And we could just go spamming each of these chunks with all the things we need, but that's not really going to help us ever so well. First of all, I think we need to keep at least these two chunks clear so that we've got room for a control area where we can have factory gauges that control what's automatically produced. So I think we should probably start in that corner and work our way around the back, and then if we need to come into these chunks in the middle, we can do that. And we probably should start with something simple like presses. So heading over into one of these, I don't really want to go into a chunk with holes in the floor. Let's start in this one here. And what we're going to be doing is adding 9 presses. And of course, presses don't need to take up that much room at all. If we just have them like this, we could have a little storage bit at the back of the belt, and then we just need our presses along the middle, just like that. And then we'd have a whole bunch of room left over in this chunk for other processing things. But how are we going to get our items in and out? Well, we're going to need packages and frogs. First of all, along the back, we need a row of blocks. And then on top of that, we could have a whole row of barrels. And then we would do exactly the same thing at the other side with a bunch more barrels. And then all we'd need to do is just put funnels on front of those barrels over there, and then just put a load of funnels on these barrels here. Of course, then we'd need a ridiculous number of packages to get the packages into those barrels, a ridiculous number of packages to get the packages out of the finished barrels, and then we'd need a frog on every single one of these to bring the items in. And then each one of these would need its own address, and then we'd have to sort of decide which press we're sending it to and not the entire system, which means this thing is not going to be suitable for what we want. It's way too many packages, way too many frogs, way too many barrels, and we can make this a whole bunch simpler and a whole bunch better for our bulk processing needs. So now that we've got a clear space again, let's think about this properly. We want 1 input and 1 output. And for that, we're going to use a volt on the input. So let's find roughly where the middle is in here and then stick down 3 of those and then 3 of those. We're going to put 1 packager on it. Then we can link 1 frog to that packager. And now we've got an input. We then want our 9 belts coming out from in front of our input. And these are going to need to be a little bit longer than the ones we had before. And that's because instead of using 9 normal andesite funnels, we're just going to use 1 brass one to get the items out. Where's my tunnels? I made tunnels. 100% made loads of tunnels. Where's my tunnels? I guess I didn't make tunnels. 100% made tunnels. And then in order to get our items split evenly across these belts, we can then just add on a whole bunch of tunnels like this. He says, I'm one short, and just change those to for split or split, and that will then distribute whatever goes into this one evenly across all of those. Then we want our mechanical presses in front of these, and then we need our output, and we could use more tunnels to then make everything go to a single point and just put it into a single vault. However, belts are cheaper. And yeah, we could actually use belts for the input as well, but what we're going to do at this point here is we're going to have a belt coming across here towards the middle. We're going to have a belt here coming towards the middle. So everything on these three belts are going to end up on here, and everything on these three belts are going to end up on here. We're going to put some blocks there, a vault here, and then on top of the vault, we can have our output packager. And if we can just about reach this line over here, we can have our output frog. And that is basically, apart from the power needed to run it and the missing tunnel, that is the setup pretty much complete, which uses a whole bunch less resources than we would have if we were doing it the other way around. Now, the reason we don't want to be using the belts like this to get the items out of there is because then we would still need tunnels to actually split the number of items coming from this in order to do that, and that would be tricky. But what we can do in order to maximize this, if we want to send 9 stacks of items at a time to this and get them all pressed nice and quickly, if we put 3 funnels on here instead of just 1, we can get 3 stacks at a time out of there, which means each one of these is going to be holding a third of 1 stack instead of a ninth of 1 stack, and that means we'll get a whole bunch more stuff done more quickly, which we won't actually because presses can only do 1 item at a time. But it makes me feel better. Right, power and more tunnels. I'm sure I made tunnels. And there we go, we can add in the final tunnel. Now, before we start adding power to this, is there any way we can optimize this further? Because realistically, it's not really using that much of the chunk space, and having this frog all the way at the back here means the packages have to travel even further from our storage system underground just to get to here. But potentially, if we was to spin this round 90 degrees, then our inputs and our outputs should be a little bit closer to the storage system, and meaning we can get items in and out quicker? Possibly? Maybe? I think that makes sense. So I might just scooch this round a little bit before we call that a day. And there we go, it's now been rotated 90 degrees and it's now slightly different from what it was, and for some reason has 2 frogs. We only need 1 there. The input is exactly the same as it was before. I've scooched the presses back so that they're right next to these tunnels now, and this time we've got the belt going all the way over to here where we've got our output. And why have I done it like that? Well, because there's 2 types of presses, and we might as well have it all in this same chunk to be all working in the same way. So all I'm going to do now is completely reverse what I've already built on this side, but this time I'm going to need a little bit more room. Oh, and why am I doing 9 at a time rather than 8 or 16 or 12? Well, that's mainly because how storage works. Most storages, like shulker boxes or chests or barrels, have 9 stacks per row. So it's nice and easy to fill up a shulker box just by sending 3 lots of 9 stacks. And that just makes life a lot easier when it comes to maths and sorting things out when you're trying to figure out how many things you want of things. Of course, that's not particularly great if you're just sending a stack of items at a time, because 64 doesn't divide by 9, so maybe 8 would be better. But we're having 9. 8 would also be better because it's more symmetrical. Do I care? No, this is fine. Right, anyway, the next row of things, we're going to need slightly longer belts this time, ideally facing in the right direction. And that's because these presses are going to have basins on. We're going to, yes, with some things need pressing inside of a basin. So we can put all of the basins on there. And then what we could do is actually spin these basins round so they point out this way, like this. And then we don't actually need very much conveyor there at all. It's going to look a bit wonky with our presses being higher up though. Oh, look how wonky it is. But it works. And then we could put our funnels on here like this, and then we would have our tunnels along here like this. So our belts do need extending slightly. Bring that along there like that. Put a load of those there, a load of those there, some more of those there, and then 3 of those there, with 3 of those there, and a frog just there. Okay, so now we've got basin style presses as well, all leading out to this single frog that will take all of the items out of there and stick them back into the system. But I don't like how the belt extends underneath the basins here, because that has an opportunity for things to go missing. So what I'm going to do is just remove these basins quickly, and then with all of the belts a block back, I can just stick an actual block on there and then put the basins on, and that should make them automatically turn around to spit towards the conveyor. And then, of course, to get the items into that vault, we're going to need a funnel there and a funnel there, and that's made that one not happy at all. But bro, I need you to be happy. You not spit out into the same block? Okay, fine. We move our frog. There we go. That's better. Now all of our basins can face in the right direction. Good. So this system's ready. It just needs power and then some addresses for our little froggies. But pressing things. These 9 presses are going to be great for turning nuggets into ingots, but they're not going to be particularly good for when we're mixing things to press them. But we'll worry about that later. So before we do anything else, let's actually get some power to this thing, and then we can make sure it actually works. So we've got power just over here next to this thing. We've also got power in the wall. Where's the best place to get power from? I don't really want to run it off these chain conveyors, because although that would make more sense, I guess. Okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's just bring a line of shafts down from there. A little bit of chain drive here across there like that, and that is actually already going in the right direction. There we go. So all of those belts are already going in the right direction. That's good. We of course need that over here as well, and we couldn't just mirror that from this one here, but we might as well just extend this across perhaps. Or what we could do, because we're going to need power onto those as well, is stick a gearbox there, come that way there and stick a gearbox there. Then we have another one there and do that. And they're going to go backwards. Well, let's just see how that fares if we do that. That one, yeah, that's not going to work at all. Okay, what we'll do then is we'll put some chain drive there. And there we go. Now all the belts are going in the correct direction. Fantastic. We've just got to power the presses now. This one's going to be nice and easy with a little bit of chain drive along here like this. That's those presses powered. These ones not so easy because I put a gearbox right in the way. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to bring our chain drive up to power the belts, and then I'm going to extend this across here, put another gearbox there, and now those belts are powered just from the back instead. And that is this entire system powered. Fancy. The last thing to do is just to tidy up this little bit here so we don't see all of these horrible looking sort of bare shafts, and just give a nice little edge to that. We can also run some blocks down the middle here just so that we don't have a weird gap in the floor. And why don't we just finish it off with a little bit more trim all the way around the edges so that this entire thing just feels nice and complete, like its own little unit. Wonderful. It works so well. The presses are floating. Yeah, they are floating a bit. Let's make them a little bit less floaty. We could use some girders, but that'll do for now, I think. And there we go. Our pressing system is 100% complete. Now let's give these frogs some names and see if it works. That's going to be FNT Press Basin, and this one's going to be FNT Press. Nice and simple. Now all we need to do is give this one a signal to actually send out any items that's in there, and we could just turn on the packager with a lever and then it would just send out whatever items are in there automatically, but it's better to stick a timer on there so it's only sending them out every now and then and not just clogging up our lines with loads and loads of packages that only have one item in, just like I did in my other workshop. So we're going to need a timer, and we're going to need some redstone links and some wool. I didn't bring any wool. Okay, so first things first, right at the back over here, we're going to set up a temporary little timer system. We're going to put this on every 10 seconds. We're going to stick a redstone link in front of that with a little bit of green wool at the bottom and a timer there. So every time this blips, it should enable that. Just like that. Okay, then what we need to do is come over to our little froggy friend over here, and we're going to put a redstone link on here with the green wool and the timer and put that in receive mode. So that should now flash every 10 seconds, just like that. And then what I need to do is tell this frog where to send its items to. Of course, it needs an address. And that means what we need to do is then come down to our storage system and figure out where our input is. And that is over here, and all of the input frogs are called FNT storage. That's nice and easy, and that's exactly where we want our finished items going. So let's go back up to the top, grab ourselves a sign, and let's come back over to this little froggy fella, and we'll just stick a sign on there saying FNT storage. And now anything that gets repackaged and sent by that frog we'll go to our storage system. Now, these frogs here, of course, we've given names FNT Press and FNT Basin Press. So if we were to now go all the way to the very top of our elevator, ideally with something we can actually press, that would be useful. We can make some sheet and some nuggets. Okay, let's hop up all the way to the top. We'll go over to our little storagey system. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 9 gold nuggets in there. I'm going to click on that to send that to our storage system. In fact, let's send our gold ingots down there as well. And in a second, we should see those appear inside of our stock keeper. There we go. There's the 9 nuggets. And there are the 8 ingots. So we want to send our 8 gold ingots to FNT Press. And when I click send, hopefully we can follow those packages going down through the system with a bit of luck. Oh, they'll be coming up, won't they? Because they're coming from below. From the press system. Oh Jesus, I don't know which one they're in, so we'll just watch here and see what happens. They should be coming into here soon, possibly. Oh, it's already did it. I missed it. Oh, that was faster than I expected. Okay, so that means if we look at this, then in a second we should end up with a whole bunch of gold sheet in here. And there it is. We've got gold sheet. What about the 9 nuggets then? Obviously we can't send these to the press because they won't be just press. We need to send these to the basin press. So we'll just pop basin press in there, click send, and maybe this time we'll be able to actually see it happen if I go quick enough. Now what's going to happen here is, because we've only sent 9 nuggets, they're not actually going to get pressed. They're just going to get distributed evenly between these basins with 1 item in each one, which is not ideal, but eventually they should come. It hadn't already happened, has it? No. Where's your package, sir? Oh, I sent them to the wrong thing. They're just going to be spinning around, not going anywhere. Yeah, it didn't make where it... Oh, yeah, I put the wrong address on it. Jeez. My bad. I go get that package back. Come here, little package. You lost. Okay, I got you, bro. Don't worry. I put you back in the system. And maybe call this the right name, which is Press Basin. Just like that. So now I send them to the right place, and hopefully this time we might actually see something happening. Did it already happen? Was I too slow? No, it's not happened yet. There we go. The frogs got them. They got split, and now each one of these should have a gold nugget in it. It has. But obviously we need to send a lot more of that than those to get pressed. So that wasn't the best example, but it worked. Our pressing system works. It is complete. And that means the little system we've put in place to make it works absolutely perfectly, and we can replicate that with all the different types of mechanisms that we need to produce things in mega bulk. However, thinking about it, this system's not finished, because it's going to be incredibly infuriating if I've only got a handful of things that need pressing in the basins and they all just end up getting stuck and clogged up in here. So what I think I should actually do is set up a singular one of these basins with its very own input, so that we can just send a few items at a time to one of them, and then have this one, instead of FNT Press Basin, we'll have this one as FNT Bulk Press Basin. And then this one doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter if we only get 1 item at a time coming through, because they will get pressed still, so we can leave that as that. So yeah, I think that's the play here. Play? What are you, baseball instructor? Baseball? What a heck? You don't even know anything about baseball, mate. No? Do you? No. The only problem is the tunnel's now going to be in the way, because ideally what I'd do is I'd have another frog and packages set up on there, then a little funnel on there going to there. But if I do that, then it's still going to get split between those. So what I need to do is have something to just put them in there. I could use a mechanical arm. That's not a bad idea. Or the other thing I could do is just move these back and then have one of those like there and then spit it off to the side, which would be a lot simpler than mechanical arm. But then I have to move everything back a block. I have a plan. I'm going to delete all of these like this. I'm going to get rid of those there like that. I'm going to get rid of that block there and that block there. I'm going to extend that belt back and that belt back. I'm then going to colour those in so they're not bare. And then I'm going to come along and put the tunnels back here right in front of that vault there. And then use our funnels to get things out. One there and one there. And that should still do exactly the same thing. And that means now what I can do is stick a funnel on there with a packager on there. And a new little froggy, and this can be FNT Basin Press, and that one is FNT Bulk Basin. No, I've done it wrong again. This one can be FNT Press Basin, and this one Actually, I'm going to move this round. Can be FNT, press, base, and bulk. And now we've got a way of just sending a few items just into one basin. Lovely. That was easy. Now it's time for mega build time. Get your time lapses at the ready. Or maybe I should talk my way through. Oh, geez. I think first things first, realistically, I need a list of everything I want to produce. Where's that clipboard gone? Should I bring it with me. I brought a clipboard. I did. This sugar box is lying to me. Ah, there it is. And here's my list of things we need. With pressing already done, we need mixing, washing, blasting, smoking, haunting, crafting, crushing, sawing, waxing, grinding, composting. We need to be able to make precision mechanisms. We need a track maker. And of course, we need some individual setups for things like making brass and andesite alloy and barrels and vaults and golden carats and electron tubes. So I've got a lot of stuff to squeeze in here. So I think I'm going to do it slightly differently. And there we go, we now have our mixing setup done. It's basically exactly the same as the press one, except for instead of presses, it's got mixers. And I've also added water into the basins because a few of the items that we need to mix, such as pulp for cardboard, require water. And water won't affect recipes that don't need it, meaning that we can just shove anything through there that needs mixing. And if it needs water, it's got it. And if it doesn't, that's great. Of course, that's not going to mix anything that needs lava. But I'm not sure if there are actually many recipes that do require lava in the mixer. Generally speaking, if you're adding lava to something, you're normally using a press in a basin. So if we do come across any recipes that need lava instead of water, we can just create a separate system that will do that. But there we go. That is our mixing setup done, which does give us the other half of this chunk free to add in more systems if we need it. Although I think for now I'm going to move on to washing and blasting and smoking and haunting, which I think we can do all in one chunk. Before I jump straight into the time-lapse though, I just want to address a couple of things. It's very easy to set up like a blaster or a smoker or something with just your fans on the floor, and then you just literally throw the items on in front of them, wait for them to get smelted, and then have the funnels that's going to pick them up, well, then just pick them up. But this requires having items that are just on the floor. Item entities are laggy in high quantities, and when we're making bulk processing systems, I don't want to have hundreds or thousands of items on the floor being blasted or smelted or washed or haunted. Items on belts, however, are not as laggy because they're not actually doing anything. They don't have any physics, or they're not expecting to be picked up or touched or interfered with in some way. So I don't want to make it really simple and just have a system where I can throw all of the items on the floor and then pick them up once they're done. I want to do it in the least laggy way possible, which of course means I'm going to need a lot more fans and a lot more power than I would if I was to do it the easy way. So that's what I'm going to do. That's two of the four things that I need added in here. We of course have got 9 washers. Each of them has 4 fans blowing on it, which should give it a reasonable speed, and the other one is the smelter, which has exactly the same thing going on. But things on these are a little bit different from the ones in my workshop, and there's still more work I need to do. Because on the frog, which is going to be renamed because it's smelting, not blasting, when items come in, they'll be distributed through here and they'll be sent through the smelter. However, if I accidentally send items to this that I don't want smelting, that are likely to be disappeared by all of this lava, I've added an attribute filter here. This attribute filter will only allow things that can be smelted through this funnel, which means if I accidentally send anything to this that can't be smelted, it's going to stay in there. But that's not ideal. We don't want it stuck in a vault. So what I'm going to do now is create another attribute filter, put some cobblestone in and put can be smelted, and this time we're going to have it as a deny list. And then as we look at that, you can see it's got a deny list, can be smelted. So now if I accidentally put anything in there at all, what I want to happen is this to come out of here somehow, get picked up by another frog that sends it back to storage. And what I would really do is get it sent into this one here. That's going to be slightly tricky, moving that all the way from there to there. Unless I guess I could use a mechanical arm, maybe. It might be able to stretch that far. And yeah, that'll probably work. So with this mechanical arm then, if we replace that block there with the depot, we can pick up from that, but then we need to be able to put it into this vault here. And I think the easiest way to do that would be to literally just drop it onto that actual funnel there. So if we pick up from there and drop into there, we could pop this mechanical arm down here, and it can reach. That's good. So then we can come across to this side here, do exactly the same thing there. Let's just quickly make an attribute list that says can be washed on a deny list. Stick a funnel on there, stick that on there, and then we'll get this mechanical arm to pick up from there and drop into there, and then we'll pop that on there. Now those just need power. Fortunately for me, there's a whole bunch of powery things going on around here, so I'm just going to stick a cog on there, stick a cog on there, perhaps come along like this with a couple of bits of chain drive, and then we can just stick a vertical gearbox on top of there and a vertical gearbox on top of there, and that's both of those mechanical arms now powered. So now we can do a little bit of a test to make sure this works. So I'm going to put a temporary item on there, throw something in that can't be smelted like a depot. The arm just, straight away just picks it up. But what if I throw in something that can be smelted like a piece of cobblestone? You're not supposed to be down. Oh, my goodness me. There we go. Now that should go through and actually get smelted. And there we go. It's gone in. And then it's gone in there, and now that's ready to be sent. And the next time this thing, there we go, it's gone. Amazing. Okay, good. Well, that's a lovely little system that solves a little bit of a problem that I've had in my previous workshop, where I accidentally send all of my things to either get smelted or crushed, that I don't want crushing or smelting. So yes, we're going to add that similar system onto the crushing setup. But before we get to the crushing setup, we need to make an exact copy of this, but for haunting and smoking. Smoking? Oh, that's bad. No, it's like food smoking, mate. I don't know why you would smoke food in this day and age, because it tastes gross, but that's how Minecraft works. So yeah, I'll do that next. And there we go. After not too long at all, we've now got our smokers and our haunters all in place, doing exactly the same thing as what we've got going on over there, albeit this one's a little bit tidier with all of the chain drive, which does make me think I could probably tidy that one up as well. But right now it works, and I've still got a whole bunch of building to do, starting with the crushing, I think, next. But I don't know, where's my list gone? I broke the barrel and the clipboard fell off. Oh, jeez. I lost my clipboard again. I need to make a new one now. I'm so dumb. But thanks to the fact that I already recorded what I had on the list as part of this video, I was able to go back through the footage and check what I had on the list, which I've now changed slightly in order to put it in a bit of a better order, which means we're doing crushing next, just as I said. I bet you thought I was going to add 9 lots of crushing wheels in there, didn't you? Well, I didn't, because that would be overkill. Instead, we've got 3 lots of crushing wheels because they are going to be able to keep up more than enough with the amount of things we actually need to crush, which is mainly just raws and occasionally a bit of cobble. So yeah, we don't need many crushing wheels. Everything's exactly the same as it was before, and we've got our little hey, don't crush me type filter that says, if it can't be crushed, don't crush it. Easy. Although before I finish, I do want to just sort of tidy up a few of these holes just in case either I or something ends up falling down them. I don't want to get crushed in my own crushing wheels. I should probably put some barriers round, but that just seems too safe. Right, next job, sawing. Well, it turns out saws are a bit of a nightmare. I already knew that saws were going to be tricky because saws always go in the opposite direction to which way the belts are going, which means if you've got a belt going this way, your saw has to spin the other way for the saw to actually go the right way, which has got to be a bug, right? I mean, it's been in Create forever, but it doesn't make sense that that spins that way. I suppose it's spinning towards the wood like a real saw. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. But if we throw on a piece of spruce wood on there, it actually goes through and goes the right way. Why have I doubled this up? Well, because saws are pretty slow, and normally if you're sawing something, you want an awful lot of them, particularly stripped logs for when you're making casing and things like that. So I wanted a whole bunch of them, and now I've got a whole bunch of them, and we've got a singular input here, which is coming into this vault. The items from that will go out both sides. They will go through these little vaults here just to transfer them onto this belt where we don't need that anymore. They'll all get split through these tunnels, go through all of the saw saws and end up in the little bit at the end there. Exactly the same thing is going on this side, and the back of it is a complete squirrely mess to try and get everything going in the right direction, because of course everything needs to go in total opposite directions, hence the nightmare. But it's done, except for the filters. Which, what did I do with the filters? Oh geez, these are not the, oh geez, where have I put the filters? These ones, 9. I need 18 of them, and I'm completely out of wool, pretty much. I think I might just about be able to scrape some together, but it's also reminded me I need an address, and I also need to throw on the timing system. Let's just do that quickly. FNT storage, redstone link, timer, green wool, lime. Yep, lime, wool. And there we go. That's the little froggy sorted, and we can put filters on 9 of these. Realistically, we're probably going to have to upgrade these because we're going to need the strip log for each different type. So it might be worth actually using attribute filters in order to basically add in those, and then add, yeah, that's a good shout, actually. And what I can do with these, for example, is throw in some strip log, and we can put on here is tagged C stripped logs, which is ideal. We'll add that. We also want to add in is planks, and we want to add in is slabs. There we go. That is going to make life a lot better for us. Then what we can do is grab our other filters that we were using and actually just pop that in there. And then we don't need any of these things here at all. But there are a few other things we do need to add to these filters, but I guess we'll do that over time as we actually figure out what we need. For instance, the industrial iron blocks would be a good one to add in here. But here's where the problem lies. If I put both of these into this filter, like so, and then I come over to our machines and put the filters on the saws. Let's just throw it on this one for now. Now when I throw my iron ingot in, it could either come out as industrial iron or weathered industrial iron. It's I don't really get a choice in the matter. It just happens to be, yeah, so it's done weathered iron that time. So it's just whatever it decides it wants to do, which is not ideal, which means we can only actually have one of those things in here. And that means if we ever want to set up a system for weathered industrial iron, we'd need to run those through a completely different source system, which is annoying. But hey ho, that's the life we live, guys. That's the life we live. And we've managed to make 13 of these filters, which will get us a reasonable amount of the way along this thing. But I'm kind of tempted to undo this like individual thing and have this on one and have 2 inputs for this, so that we could have one side potentially for the industrial iron and the other side for weathered industrial iron. But then we'd have to remember which one was which, but I don't think that would be too bad. That makes a lot more sense than this squirrely mess I've got on the back. So I'm going to do that quickly and then fix those filters. And there we go. In not too much time at all, that's a much simpler setup. And the good thing about doing it this way as well is we're not actually limiting ourselves to just 9 saws. We can still send certain things to every single one of those saws. So if we need an abundance of the framed glass, we wouldn't need to send it to FNT saw 2 or FNT saw 1. We could just send it to FNT saw with a wildcard on, and it'll go to both. So that's good. Right, anyway, the filters for the other side, and then this little section. Jeez, the filters. Why are you so dangerous? Yeah, so in order to make filters, I need wool, and this is all the wool I've got left in the world. I'm really going to need some sheep, but that should just be just about enough to make a handful more of those. I mean, I can make 20, but I don't want to use all these different colors, and I certainly don't want to use all of my white wool, so I'm going to make 5 more filters, and that should just about do us. Now, we just need to adjust these filters to have the weathered iron block on instead, and duplicate them a bunch of times, and now we've got just enough for that other set of saws. And here we go. We can just plonk them all on here like this, and that's, I just got to remember that if I want the industrial iron, I send it to saw 2, and if I want the weathered iron, I send it to saw 1. And it doesn't matter which way around these spin, they still spin the wrong way. Anyway, that is it for the very first half of our workshop. We've still got a whole bunch more things to add in here, including grinding, waxing, weathering, composting, crafting, making brass and andesite, alloy and barrels and bolts and golden carrots and electron tubes and track and precision mechanisms. And all that's going to take some time, which is why I'm going to leave it till next time.